Think about what you want to learn today, sitting in your seat. What do you want to come out of here knowing, and make sure that you address it. We have very, very smart panelists here today, and I'll introduce them now. So Neil Vineberg, who's right here, just to my immediate right. Neil has over 2 decades of experience in PR, positioning, and thought leadership with startups and Fortune 500s. His agency, Vineberg Communications, is a technology PR boutique based in San Francisco and New York. And his clients include JICU, WebShots, Jaduca, Aerosite, JVC, and the New York Biotechnology Association. And Neil created and managed the Peace Run, which is the world's largest relay for peace, working with Archbishop Desmond Tutu, President Mikhail Gorbachev, Sir Paul McCartney, and the Dalai Lama. So this is Neil. Next to him is Louis Gray. Louis is the author of LouisGray.com, a Silicon Valley-based early adopter site focused on social media, tech, and innovation. The site has most notably championed the emergence of RSS feed aggregators, social media sites, and distributed conversations. While not blogging, Louis works in corporate marketing and PR for a private Silicon Valley technology infrastructure company and is an advisor to Readburner. He also is a proud father of a twin boy and girl. So this is our panel today. And I'm just going to kind of kick this off and I'll start with Neil. What are you using right now inside the space? What are you using and leveraging from a Micromedia perspective?
Okay, so I approach this as someone who runs a technology PR firm. So, the platforms that I use to kind of establish and maintain my own brand presence are Twitter, JICU, LinkedIn, and FriendFeed. I've got photos on Picasa. But I also use Hello Text, which is kind of a little application that lets me broadcast my tweets to 10 platforms total. So I try to maintain a particular presence for myself because I am my brand in the public relations world. And there are a couple of people following me and what I do. Yesterday I was at Mobilize, which is Om Malik's show in San Francisco, and my friend Yuri Engstrom, who is the CEO of JICU, was there, and I haven't seen him in 6 weeks, but he was recounting all the things I've been doing the past 6 weeks because he was following me on Twitter and JICU. So those are the things that I am involved with.
How about you, Liz?
Well, I think everybody here is on Twitter. For me, I use Twitter quite a bit, as well as using some of the social aggregators like FriendFeed, Social Media, and Strands. You're really seeing an explosion in that space as well. I think often you have to go to where the people are, not necessarily where you want to be. And that's part of the conversation. And so for me, that meant getting into Twitter, it meant definitely using LinkedIn, using Facebook. You mentioned earlier about people not understanding that you're even on Twitter. I had friends from high school and college saying, I don't speak your language. Because they're on Facebook and they see these kind of hashtags and the short words that we're using. And I said, what are you doing? And so we have to go through and explain what Twitter is. And that can help get people out there. But it is about getting the information out, getting the updates, and telling the story in 140 characters or less.
Definitely. So sticking with you, Louis, you're really in the heart of Silicon Valley, and I would imagine that your BS meter is pretty well refined. What makes a successful Micromedia play?
It needs to be something that's easy to install or use. It's hard to say the chicken or the egg. It needs to have a community. But in order to have a community, someone has to start and go first. Right? It needs to be something that's light, that is easy to understand, and that is actually portable. I think you mentioned it strongly about mobile and having the APIs. One of the things that really helped Twitter and FriendFeed explode is working with developers and working with an API. That I can go to my blog right now and there's something in the top right from FriendFeed that shows my activity there, shows the services that I work with. Twitter, as we know, is very flexible. They've got some of their kinks worked out. And it's really empowering a strong developer community.
So like you said, most people here are on Twitter. Twitter is obviously the most popular, it gets the most amount of buzz. And some people say that Twitter is mainstream. What are your thoughts on that, Neil?
Well, how many folks here live in Silicon Valley and work there? Okay. I think in the Valley there's this huge echo chamber, and so and Twitter emerged from there. Really, the early adopters in Silicon Valley, the tech folks who are really pumping social media and promoting it, they really embraced Twitter, and it was quite incredible. And then I think last year in 2007, when they went to South by Southwest, it really took off. because you had like 2,500 folks attending South by Southwest seeing Twitter. Scoble was there. There were Twitter screens everywhere, and folks went home, and this thing really spread virally. Okay, so I think that among early adopters, Twitter is really hot. But you're also starting to see mainstream media like CNN use Twitter on some of their broadcast shows. In my opinion, though, I don't think it's really mainstream. And if you take a look at all the publicity that Twitter has gotten versus the adoption and the numbers of people using it every day, I think they have a long way to go. And I work in industries like biotechnology and medicine and manufacturing, and there's no one using Twitter in those sectors. So I think if you want to look at mainstream, you have to look at the sector that you're in. In technology, social media, high adoption. In other early adopter sectors, it's got a long way to go.
I think we had the same conversation around blogging 5 to 10 years ago. And 5 to 10 years before that, we talked about email. And I think if I go back to my freshman year when I enrolled at Cal, we had people standing in the line behind us going, "What's email?" Right? They're doing the same thing right now. What's Twitter? And so I think sometimes there's this push to say, is it mainstream or not? They need to get mainstream fast. And maybe the race isn't as fast as we want it to be. Maybe people will be using Twitter and FriendFeed the way they use email and blogging today. It just won't be in 6 months or 2 years. And so what you're starting to see is not so much that it is mainstream, but you're seeing the early edge of the mainstream, like CNN, moving toward it. And with continued exposure, it could be as prevalent as you saw 1-800 numbers 10 to 20 years ago. It just continues to move.
So, what examples have you guys seen of people that are using these services really well from a business perspective?
I think you used one of them earlier with Dell. Richard Binhammer is a very big Dell advocate. And trust me, I'm an Apple guy, so I wouldn't pimp Dell unless I really saw them doing a good job. But there's also some web companies, I think Discuss, and I don't want to overly do it because they're also in that social media space. But Discuss is a commenting engine for many different types of blog platforms. And I myself tried to use it, and flat out didn't work with the platform I used. I said, forget it. I went on Twitter and said, it's too hard, I'm not going to use it. And within 20 minutes, I got a note back from their CEO saying, how can I help you? And he took the entire weekend to work on a blog template to make it better, and then rolled out a new product that solved it. And so I see companies like Discuss who are really leveraging Twitter and making them leaders.
Gotcha. And I kind of agree with him on Dell. I actually worked with Richard Binhammer at the same agency in the year 1999, and he's really come a long way from traditional PR to social media. And but when I started promoting Jaiku last year on the PR side, they were really using Jaiku channels effectively to stay in touch in real time with their customers. It was almost 24/7, and they were introducing new features within the Jaiku platform, and their users were giving them feedback in real time. And so they were able to hyper develop things like Jaiku Mobile, which really introduced mobile presence for the first time on Nokia phones. And that was really incredibly innovative at a time when Jaiku and Twitter were competing last year. It kind of put Jaiku on the map because while they had a much smaller user base, their platform was more reliable and their technology was much more advanced. So people really took notice of Jaiku for their technology. And so the development cycle was accelerated through using these microblogging platforms.
So that's interesting because
One more to add would be Comcast. I think we've seen that lately. Comcast Cares has been very visible on Twitter because everybody has this image of the cable guy who might show up between maybe 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. to your house if you're lucky and not away from the phone. But they've started to respond on Twitter when people are saying they've got Comcast outages or things are slow. And they actually have a guy responding, even if people aren't always so nice to him.